Hi, my name is Michael Bean, and this is your free lesson from myfreeactingclass.com for Monday, May the 23rd. I am a professional film and TV acting teacher. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. If you're like, hey, what is this project? And I'm just finding this on YouTube for the first time. Where can I get more information? It's just like it sounds. You just go to myfreeactingclass.com. Ta-da! You'll have this pop up saying, join the community. And if you put your email address in here. I promise not to send you random marketing stuff. I'm truly just sending out the links to the lesson and tapes from the last lesson, sort of the occasional essay or resource from me. If you scroll down here, there's the link for today's lesson. You'll find a link to me and my work here if you wanted to know more about Michael Bean. I also put the story questions PDF. This is something that I've used in lots of lessons. Just made sure that this is available right on the main page. So if you've seen me use that in class, I did a thing that I should have done a long time ago and made it super accessible here. You click on here, it'll take you to the PDF. This is a PDF called the Confidence on Camera Handbook. It's actually how I got started acting teaching, is I wrote the first draft of this. This one's a few years out of date. This is the fourth edition of it, but I still stand by a lot of the content in there. And it'll give you an overview of how professional film and TV acting works if you are not familiar at all. If you go on here, you'll find the video archive. This has not been updated since last year sometime, but we had a whole bunch of guests in the first year and change of this particular free acting class. And if you wanted to go watch a bunch of those videos, you can find them here. And if you wanted the more recent videos, you'd have to click right here. Boom, it would take you to the YouTube channel. So that's where you can see self-tape review, the character is you, how to build a character, our 5 keys to kick-ass self-tapes, a whole bunch of details there. Instantly, these 5 keys goes through the questions in that story questions PDF. So there's how to find us today. We are talking about look and type and and your essence as a person and your choices and how all of this sort of intersects in terms of your professional bookings. So I want to show you quickly of the resource that I built and sent out to the mailing list. Those of you who are on the mailing list saw this already, but I think that it'll just make a good starting place for this conversation. So characters you are most likely to be paid for. So this is my opinion. I'm based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I've been teaching professional film and TV actors for 20 years. I've also been a professional film and TV actor for, I guess, 22 years, 24 years. So that is the experience that I'm basing this off of. I don't know everything about this industry, but maybe I'm a few years ahead of you in terms of witnessing what happens. So there is sort of your essence, as a person, which is, there's a lot to that. The many aspects of who you are in different places with different people and different times of the day, different periods of your life. You're like, okay, my essence as a person, I know lots of aspects of me, and some of those are more expressed that I'm more familiar with. Some of them are less expressed. And what I've been talking about in lessons a lot lately is ease. And so as the clearest that I can define that is, as far as acting goes, is acting that tells the story, fits the style, and seems easy, confident, natural, and effortless. Now, this can come in a variety of ways. This can come from your dedicated practice, from a character that you've done over and over again and found really familiar. It can also just come from your social persona. You're like, oh, this is who I am with my friends all the time. And so when I do a character, provided I have the basic technical skill of learning lines and being able to speak those lines, even though they're not my words, as though they were, when I do that and I'm just myself, maybe that comes across with ease. However you get there, there are some characters that you will be able to deliver with ease, and this circle is not intended, as a reference point, for exactly how many most people have. What I wanted to communicate was that your essence as a person is vast, and the number of characters that you can communicate skillfully and with ease is going to be smaller. And that, is definitely one place where, as an actor, I think it is worth spending time thinking about growing. Going, okay, actually, I'm going to take on characters that are outside my essence as a person, or that are outside what is currently easy for me, And I'm going to practice those. I'm going to grow that circle of characters that I can perform with skill and ease, because you're only going to be paid for typically the thing that you can make look easy and effortless. And that is a deliberate choice of words. It doesn't have to feel easy. In fact, it's good acting, if you are genuinely bringing vulnerability into the work, very rarely feels easy. Sometimes it does. For some actors, I know they certainly say that it does all the time. More power to them. Almost everyone I know, and certainly the students that I've worked with, the experience of playing a character and bringing genuine life to big feelings, and to the range of human experience, that involves vulnerability and a discomfort, and it does not feel easy. A huge part of my job as an acting teacher is reminding people that it's about the appearance of reality for others. It does not mean that it feels easy or effortless all the time. That in lots of cases, the reminder that I give to students is, if you are feeling very uncomfortable and you can put that into the character, that's basically the most interesting thing to watch. Right. So I want to qualify this thing about ease by saying that it does not necessarily mean that it feels effortless to you. It is that it seems effortless or natural or real to the people watching. Now, also, film and TV is strongly, strongly influenced by how you look and sound. And this is stronger in North American film and television than it is in television out of the UK, say. But I would say that that's actually, that at least in my experience of watching more recent movies and TV shows, I don't watch a lot of stuff out of the UK, but I would say that even that stuff is leaning more in the direction of what you look like, what you sound like, is an important part of the story being told. Basically, they want the audience to look at people and right away go, oh, I'm going to assume the character is like this and this and this, and then they're going to play with that. Now, whether they lean into it or away from it is still part of the visual storytelling. And what that means is, in getting cast, how you look and sound is extraordinarily relevant, right? They are, if you go back, say 20 years, and you're shooting a project in North America, particularly if it's being cast in Los Angeles or the States, if your character is charismatic, then likely you're going to have to look like that the second the camera sees you. If you are doing the same thing 20 years ago on BBC, if your character is charismatic, you could look like anything, as long as when you open your mouth, people are like, whoa, okay, that actor's really like, that person is charismatic and interesting. And I would say that we're sort of leaning more in the direction of those North American film and TV archetypes. Obviously, indie films and things are still doing whatever they want and breaking the rules. One of the wonderful things about doing indie or independent films, is that you get outside of those sort of strict stereotypes, and can be a chance for somebody who their essence or the things they do easily do not line up with how they look and sound, can sometimes really get a break there. Now, where actors are typically cast the most are in these spots. So the red star is obviously, it's all lining up. Who you are as a person, you've got the skill or the practice, or whatever it is that you need in you to do that character, with skill and ease, or in a way that seems natural, seems easy and effortless. It also fits how you look on camera, look and sound on camera, in a way that somebody who's on the decision-making side is like, yes, I want to buy this for my story. So I'm not talking about the artistic work, the things you do to stretch yourself, the things you do to feed your soul. If you're lucky and you get those things to line up, great. I'm talking about professional film and TV acting, where is a much larger system. The actors themselves typically have less agency about what parts they do, but you do get to act in a show that's going to be seen by millions upon millions of people, typically speaking. So that's the trade-off, and the trade-off means playing in this world, of unfair stereotypes a lot of the time. You can also be cast in something that you can make look and sound easy, that you look and sound right for, but that is not part of who you are as a person. And those can be really fun roles for actors to do. I'm going to show you just like a little smidge of Mike, who's submitted tapes here before, and has worked with me as an actor before, who looks and sounds like he could be cast, as a aggressive guy, who definitely can perform roles like that with ease, but that's not who he is at all. But you look at him and you're like, okay, right, I can see this person playing that kind of character. Boom, there it is. It is also, of course, possible that you can get cast as something that's sort of only in one of these. This is just about where you're most likely to get cast. I've known actors to get cast just because they looked and sounded right for the part, and something about them something about their essence fit it, especially with very young actors, right? Like I have a client who's 10, his first role on a TV show, like he'd just taken, a couple of acting classes, he was maybe a year into training, he was still struggling with being able to do this thing of ease and, sound like a real person, but with 1 or 2 lines, they just gave him, the kid who's like runs around the corner of the truck and like says a couple of lines and runs away. He looked just right for it. As far as what they were concerned, as an actor, he probably was scared on set. That's purely my guess, and likely in the audition, because those worked. He booked that role. And sometimes it does happen for very small roles. That can be somebody who's like into film and TV. But in general, if we're talking about like where I suggest you focus professional work, it's in here. And so what that means is spending some time thinking about, okay, what do most people, when they look at video footage, when they look at that first 5 seconds of a self-tape, what do they assume about me as a person, right? So if you're going to ask people who know you a little bit, or not at all, to finish the sentence, that starts with, I imagine that you are, I imagine what's true about you is, and then you just see what commonalities evolve there. One thing that I've said about type in the past is something that can be useful is thinking, what am I tired of people who don't know me assuming about me? So that can be an in, because you've had lots of experience in your life in lots of different places. Sometimes that thing has just come up enough and you're like, well, that's not part of my essence, and so that's going to be irritating. And so sometimes that has logged in memory. Not always, but I suppose we could move this type circle like right down into this other circle. I put it up here outside for reference, but obviously like it could go anywhere. Some people are like, oh yeah, like the way that I look and sound, absolutely is part of who I embrace as in my essence as a person. It doesn't, I'm not limited to that, but like, I know all of that in myself. Sure. And ease, if you were, for me, that really takes in all the things that are in the 5 keys to kick-ass self-tape series. So everything in the story questions handout, which I may come back to today if we have time to review the self-tapes. But if you've got self-tapes, send them next week. I'm going to show you just of like the first 5 seconds, of a bunch of self-tapes today, and then we're going to go back and we're going to review those self-tapes and any of the rest that y'all send in next week and talk about them in more detail. But right now I'm interested in, what is that first impression? What is it that you look at this person, you're like, okay, does it seem easy? And what do they look and sound like? Because that is typically the assessment that's going to be made in those first 5 seconds, in my opinion, by decision makers. So let's take a look at some questions, and so want to sort of quickly throw up a question from James, who's here with us, and then I want to include James to ask his question, because he shared some things before we started recording that I think are really useful and relevant to everyone here. And so here's what James sent me this week. He said, another thing I'm seeing online, a lot of coaches are absorbed in this idea of standing out in an audition and giving the audience something unexpected. Not sure how well that resonates with me. In my training and working more on the self-tape side with you, I've always thought of being honest and following the story that fits you as a person was better. Now, I 100% agree with the statement by James. I do think that we see a lot of, especially online, kind of clickbait things that are like, stand out in an audition, you do something unexpected, and grab people's attention. Why do we see that? I think we see it because there's a lot of desperate actors out there. There's a lot of actors who just wish there was a way to buy their way into booking. And it is very, very tempting, not just for actors who are starting up, but truly I've seen it in actors in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. They're like, there must be a secret that I just don't have. That must be why I'm not booking. It's very, very tempting because uncertainty sucks. It sucks to go like, I am doing everything I can, I'm still not booking, and I actually will never know why. Because I never will be able to go and interview those decision makers about why they watched 500 tapes and they chose somebody else's. I'm never going to be able to have that conversation. And so it's very tempting to pay somebody else to look you in the eye and say, I know why. It's because you don't have the secret. You just have to give me money and I'll give you the secret. And then, you buy the secret and and here's the thing, like 1 in 1,000 people, in any given year is going to book something huge. So if that person sells 1,000 of those, for one of them, it's going to work. And that person, they're going to be able to get a video of that person looking right into the camera and going, I bought the secret and it changed my life. I booked this huge thing. Look at this huge TV show. I'm amazing. The secret changed me as a person. But the truth is 1 in 1,000 of those professional actors were going to book something huge anyway. So this is my opinion, and this is what bothers me about the sort of marketing side of things. I don't think there is a secret. I think that becoming skilled takes time and effort and iteration. And I don't think there is a magic secret to standing out. And I don't think that anybody can tell you one magic thing that is going to instantly result in lots of bookings for you. Not when there are 500 people auditioning for everything that you're going out for. Not when producers are reviewing that many tapes. And that number 500 came up from James just before, so I'm just going to include him here. And so James, can you sort of reprise your question for everybody, please?
Yeah. So I did a self-tape with Mike, and after we did our self-tape, I talked to a friend in class, and he did a guest star as well, and he booked it. Really good, great, talented, great guy, good actor. And I was just like, dude, do you know how many people, self-tape for this? And he was like, the casting director or his agent said around like 500. It's for a big network show, Paramount Plus. And that just got me to think. It got me to think about, wow, casting director, producers, whatever, have to sit there and click 500 times at someone's performance and just click and say no, no, and it just got me to think about, wow, you're in this business is like super competitive. I mean, if 500 people are going out, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, and you're one out of the 500. And it goes back to you saying how people might get enticed to say, well, I'm going to make a bold and something or interesting choice and do something really crazy.
I'm gonna do a backflip.
Yeah, I'm going to do a backflip into the frame and show them. And then it goes like, damn, like it posed me to ask you the question that you just presented. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily want to elicit in someone's mind watching me. He's literally trying to stay that's the sole purpose of doing something that's not part of the story, that doesn't make sense of what's going on. We have to cast this role. We have about 3 days. To me, I was like, I don't know if I want to do something for the sole purpose of standing out. Because then, like you said, you mentioned in your response, it looks like you're trying too hard. And usually, I don't think anybody wants to hire someone who's trying too hard.
And so the other thing that I wanted you to share in the lesson is you said that you watched your friend's tape for the role that he booked this great guest star on this huge show, and you said that you watched the tape, and it just seemed like him. You were like, oh yeah, I know that guy from class.
Yeah, So that's where I really was, my mind went bonkers. Because I looked at it and I said, it looks like he just set up his camera, had words that he had, that him himself conjured up, and just, because I know this guy.
Yeah.
I know if I would see him acting, I would know, because me and him have built a relationship in class. I know what kind of things sounds well with him, words that come out and then words that don't. And when he did it, I said, dude, that looks like you just said something honest to something. Like, it didn't look like you were acting at all.
Okay, so when you watch his tape, it's not like it's not like he did anything in those first 15 seconds magical to stand out. It's
No,
just that it just really sounded like this is what he wanted to say, and he was really there and saying it.
it was not, it didn't seem like he was performing.
Amazing.
He just, the first 5 seconds, he looked, didn't say anything,
Yeah.
said words, just honest words. That's it.
Beautiful.
That is it. And that, yeah,
exactly in line with what Mike said about his first professional booking. When I talked to him last week, he said, yeah, the first thing I booked professionally is convinced myself that I didn't need to act. There was just go on camera, say the words.
Yeah, that's what I was like 500, and he didn't do anything. He didn't backflip into it. He didn't say a line with some kind of intonation to really like, oh, I'm gonna capture them with this first line. He was just being.
Right. And so with that in mind, thank you so much. I swear I did not pay James to say that, and I did not know the rest of the details. But with that in mind, let's watch the first 5 seconds of some tapes, because Alex sent in some tapes for us to look at. Natalia sent in some tapes. I've got a tape from Mike. I've got a tape from Duke. So quick review of the sort of self-tape setup, any kind of blank wall or anything behind you. I currently have a stretchy piece of fabric, which you can see from some of the wrinkles. It was folded up in a corner for a long time. Does it matter? I don't think so, because it's mostly that nothing distracts from these, your pretty eyeballs. The reason that you have a blank wall or something behind you is so that people aren't like, hey, what's that book on the bookshelf behind you? Or, oh, that's interesting wallpaper. Like, truly, especially if they're watching 500 tapes, it's really easy for their eyes to wander somewhere else, and you want there. You want to be in a medium close-up, somewhere between a medium close-up, which is top of your head down to just your armpits, or top of your head down to your belly button would be more of a medium shot. If somewhere in there is sort of like your range to move from TV edition, you definitely, if you're shooting with your phone, want it to be horizontal and not vertical. One of the easiest mistakes to make, besides having a confused background and bad lighting, is to have headroom, space over your head. So just make sure that you tip down like there. Especially if you're recording with a phone, make sure you are really close to your phone, and whoever's reading with you is further away from the phone, because phones are great at making yours close to the phone loudest, and you want to make sure that you are the loudest person. So there's the kind of real basics. Eye line, imaginary line between your eyes, which is looking at it very close to camera, boom, that side or that side, never directly at the lens, unless you're doing what I'm doing now, which is looking right into the eyes of you watching and saying, hi, I want to talk direct to you. Doesn't happen in film and TV very much. Obviously, you don't want the camera like way above you or way below you. You end up with these weird angles. Right? If it's below you, then kind of everybody gets this double chin. It's very unfortunate. If it's above you, you get even more forehead than I have, and I got a lot of forehead. And so you'll see that these the folks who are doing these taping setups have thought about this. Now, Alex also included something really fun after last week, where I showed you, I showed my setup from, so this was my setup from 2 weeks ago. So you can see the stack of storage boxes and yoga blocks and the computer perched there. My phone would normally be here beside it. With a ring light in the background. This was my setup for when I was shooting the lesson last week. Oh, let me see if I quickly took a picture of my setup from today. And so I'll pull that up for you as well. Right, here's this is where I am right now, right? So I'm getting natural light from window. I've got a ring light, here on the table beside me. Now something you might notice here is I've inverted my ring light. I've turned it physically around and just taped a piece of paper. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little stick that I'm using to sort of push out the other side of that paper because I want to bounce the light back at me, but I don't want it to make a ring shape in my eyes. So if I'll show you just quickly Mike's self-tape here. So hopefully, maybe I can even zoom in on his eyeballs. No, that's as zoomed as I can get. But you can see that he's got a ring there. If he was closer to his ring light, that would potentially make a ring all the way around his pupil, would be distracting. I would say in this setup, looks totally fine. In this tape, Mike is going out for a asshole cop, and so if we're watching like just the first 5 seconds of it, or even if just like just this first frame, does this first frame say asshole cop? Well, Mike just has a really pronounced jawline. He looks very muscular. The sort of like the lines of his face work for somebody who's aggressive. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Certainly that is in line with the characters he very often auditions for. And so I'm not saying anything that I think he would find offensive. He's definitely booked characters like that and sort of leans into that when we're practicing. He's like, I want to work on characters that are in line with the stuff that I'm auditioning for. The hitmen and gangsters, and thugs, and in this case, asshole cop. And so his face is doing some of the work for him, which is, and I'm assuming why they're looking at headshots and saying, yeah, let me try that one. Let me try that one, right? Like muscular white guy, strong lines to his jaw. Now, is this fair or a reflection of Mike's essence as a person? No, like I said, he's the sweetest guy. He's not aggressive, and I mean, I'm sure he has his moments like anybody when he stubs his toe or gets cut off in traffic, but certainly not how he moves through the world, but he's interested in being good at those characters. In this, I would say he's playing with like stillness. Stillness is often a way to, stillness comes across as power, stillness and direct eye contact. If I was going to, and Mike, if you watch this, I would say that if it had been possible to frame it up so that we didn't have this black line here on the right-hand side, does draw my eye away from your eyeballs. And even though in the setup for this, they said, frame yourself from your top of your head down to your waist, I would say it's ready to just break the rules a little bit and zoom in it a little bit closer. Even if after you're done, you throw it into a movie program and you're like, okay, I'm just going to crop it in a little bit closer because I want them looking at my eyeballs and not this. It might be interesting to play with the wardrobe, even if you don't have anything that's sort of like strictly more cop than this. Certainly, I don't think it would be appropriate to honestly, unless somebody really was a police officer, and even then you'd probably want to qualify and say, oh, hey, I'm using my uniform because I'm actually a cop, which you're probably not allowed to do now that I think about it. There's probably rules against that. But you wouldn't want to go too far with wardrobe. Still, I think that that this shirt, I would play with it a little bit. Could we have gone with sort of like a crisper colored shirt maybe, or we could just go detective style with some, like a blazer, to make his shoulders look even bigger. Either of those might have helped tell a little bit more. It'd be interesting, to see, okay, what happens if we add a tie? What happens if we do up the button, undo the top button? Playing with wardrobe a little bit, and you'll see this when we look at Alex's tapes, can help tell that story visually. So what you look and sound like on camera, of course, is influenced, by you and your lighting setup, right? The better your lighting, the more they're going to be like, wow, there's something just really handsome and charismatic, or really beautiful and charismatic about this person. It's all lighting. Well, mostly that, whatever your genetics gave you. The other piece of it here is wardrobe, but I do think it's worth thinking about. So let's just watch the first 5 seconds.
Hey, where are you going so fast, huh?
Uh, right. And so we've got Mike talking, so we've got the strong feeling or opinion that he's got about the person he's talking to. There's something physically, Mike, that I want you to look at here, which is like, it looks like your body is oriented towards the camera, even though you're looking slightly off camera. So this thing of like, my body is here, I'm a good actor, look at me following the rules, but I'm looking over there. It's subtle, but unless your shoulders line up with where you're looking, then what you're doing is like very slightly to the audience, you're communicating like, I am doing a technical thing and not like I'm a person in a place doing a thing. So it's subtle, but I think that there's another like slight adjustment. I want to give as a caveat or qualifier for any of these tapes that you wouldn't have to go very far into the past self-tape review lessons before you would find self-tapes where I gave really extensive notes and then the person came back and said, yeah, I booked that one. Right. So your self-tape does not need to be perfect. The reason, hopefully that you run it by somebody like me is so you can understand some general principles and maybe make some little tweaks, but top level, like the important thing is still, that you show up knowing what you're doing as a good actor, and just say the lines, like we heard from James, like we heard from Mike before, so that it doesn't sound like you're acting, right? That's the goal here. Now you might, of course, are going to know you're acting, right? I think that that non-actors ask this question all the time. They're like, what is it like to be in character? They've read one too many articles about like method acting, and they think that like being in character means like truly losing yourself as a separate person. And I'm fond of saying to people like that there's a word for that, and it's called psychosis. It's when your reality diverges from consensus reality, and you actually think you're somebody else. And if you actually thought you were somebody else, it'd be very unlikely to say exactly what you're supposed to while standing exactly where you're supposed to and looking exactly where you're supposed to. So the illusion for other people is that you are magically a completely different person. You're still going to need to say what you're supposed to and stand where you're supposed to and look where you're supposed to. So don't fool yourself by thinking that like, if it doesn't feel like you're totally the character, you're not doing the work. Right? Like, don't get me wrong. If you want to feel like you're the character and you can still do those technical things, more power to you. But it is not necessary to book professional work. And I know actors who actively are like, oh no, I never try for that. Not like that. That's not part of my practice at all. What's important is that the audience thinks that I'm the other person. They're just, actors psych themselves out, right? Again, because it's the kind of industry where you can be, you can either like be one of the 500 choices and never hear anything, for a year or 2 or 3, or you can even be like choice number 2, for like a year. Where they're like, oh yeah, Alex, we loved your tape. We decided to go another way. Oh yeah, Alex, oh, we're gonna be like, we pinned Alex. You're like, oh my God, I'm pinned. Yeah, this is my thing. Ooh, I'm like, and then they're like, and then you just hear nothing. And like 5 weeks later, you follow up with your agent, like, so about that pin, and they're like, oh no, they went another way. But like my friend Julie, I've said this here in class before, but it's just like a really concrete example. She won. I'm in the province of British Columbia in Canada. She won the province of BC's like top actress award 2 years in a row, and then she went 2 years where she didn't book anything. Not because she got worse as an actor, but because they just went another way every single time. Right, and if that can happen to her, then like you just have to accept that you're in an insane industry, with like an utterly unpredictable validation scheme, and that anybody who's trying to sell you on predictability is like, give me money so I'll take your uncertainty. Okay, hey, if that works for you and makes you feel better and you got the money to blow on it, great. But just like, don't think that it's going to magically get you bookings. That's my advice there. Okay, let's look at some of these other tapes, right? So this is from Duke. said, that this one was just like improv, it was about the acting, but he wanted advice on the lighting setup. Because last time, I talked about his lighting and, how in particular he was like very top lit and washed out. So Duke, I do think this lighting is better. It's got a nice clear eye light. You're not top lit and washed out, right? So there's more color on your face. I do think it's still worth playing with your setup to see if you can warm it up a little bit. And I don't know what that looks like with the devices you have or what you've got available, but if it is possible to just warm up the tone, whether that is by like adjusting the light balance, on the device you're recording with your phone or whatever, or actually like adjusting your devices or the position of your devices, then I think that we could get you looking even prettier, here. Right, because but I would say this is a strong improvement. The institutional kind of washed out thing that was happening before, did have a lot to do with that top light, right? So now your forehead's not glowing, we're looking at your eyeballs a lot more. Or certainly I am when I'm watching. And if we're thinking about like what does the character look like? Right, last time, last class I think it was, I reviewed Duke doing a nurse, and a dad, both characters he's actually been asked to audition for. Like, are we seeing that, sort of right away? Like we're definitely seeing, like this is a mature, like white guy. We got the stubble, the high forehead, on camera. Like what did these communicate? Like these days, there's sort of a range of things. I mean, he's not, because he's not dressed in something, that is, right. He's not wearing a collared shirt. He's, like he doesn't have glasses, so he's, so that like, the high forehead, and the stubble sort of is not going into, I think actually now that I'm looking at it, Duke, I think especially the stubble, here, to me on camera says like, rougher, tougher, meaner, so I would be curious, both to like see if you what it's like if you warm up your lighting, and also it might be interesting to compare and contrast, like stubble, no stubble, for characters that are supposed to have that edge, or characters that are supposed to be warmer. Now, for me, just like from the lines of your face, I think that characters that that are like a little rougher, might fit the way that you come across, certainly to me on camera. Not as a person when I talk to you. No, I'm not like, Duke, he's so rough. I'm saying that if I don't know you in these first 5 seconds, might I make that first impression? I think so. Like I think that's potentially possible. And I've shared before that one of the reasons that I choose to shave my head, is that when because my hairline is like very, very much receded, and that happened like quite early in my life. And when I had hair, but my hairline was back here and it was kind of fluffy, that plus the glasses, for a while there, folks looked at that picture and they were like, oh yeah, that's the like sort of nerdy, weak, pathetic guy. Yeah, there's lots of rules for that. Yeah, but he's the guy who's like bullied by his wife, or, like the hero pushes up against the wall and he cries. And, like I've booked a couple of those, and like I got that happen on Supernatural. It was really fun. The hero pushed me up against the wall and I cried. Then he beat my head in with a hammer and I died. All of that was really fun. But this is one of the reasons why I choose, to shave my head completely now, because I'm like, I'm not okay with that particular stereotype. And if it means a slightly less professional work for me, but I'd get to audition for characters that aren't, like the nerdy guy who gets, beaten up by his wife, or, has to like, cry when confronted with the heroic lead, I'm okay with that. I'm going to keep working on, I'm going to keep going out for those kind of characters for now. Right. And so I, certainly a number of years ago, made a conscious choice to move away from the like leaning into the easy stereotype that film and TV sort of wanted to put me in there. Like, oh yeah, he's nice, he's kind, he's got those like kind eyes, and like with the receded hairline. Yes, weakness. you know, that wasn't something that I was interested in creatively, and I'm like, you know what, I'll make my money teaching and I'm not going to obsess about it too much. Right. So I just want to out myself, in a vulnerable way, because talking about this is a vulnerable thing. What I'm really saying is like, what do I assume when I look at a picture of you, and what might other people assume? And I absolutely can't speak, to what might a broad range of decision makers, assume. So just know that, like, as I'm talking about this, I am fundamentally, this is rooted in my opinion, which is the opinion of an acting teacher, not of a decision maker, not of a casting director, not of a talent agent, not of somebody who's a professional marketer of people, i.e. a talent agent, and not in somebody who is a professional decider of who gets an audition, i.e. a casting director. But those people's opinions here definitely are more relevant, but your access to them is going to be extraordinarily limited. So asking folks like me, asking your friends, asking your peers from acting class, literally asking anybody, because the assumptions of strangers are relevant here. Because that's every producer, every decision maker is essentially just a stranger looking at 5 seconds of video of you and going like, making a snap decision. Oh, that's what that person's like. So if we go to Alex's tapes, and here's where it gets really interesting. We've got boom, one, instantly, eye light, great. Eye line, he's looking right at the camera. This is a monologue. I think that that's his intention, to look right at the camera. He's framed right in the middle. It's horizontal. There's a nice neutral background. And then check this out. So we've got the wife beater. We've got the much more genteel Alex. And we've got Alex in a pretend straitjacket. Right. And so really fun, Alex like leaning into the like playing with this. Your setup looks great here, by the way. Just in terms of like, you've got an eye light, like your color is nice and human. Oh, I meant to share this earlier. Alex sent pictures of his setup. He was like, I thought I was the only one who used boxes. Here's Alex's studio, right? So from the side, right, there's looks like some door, so like maybe wardrobe with like something attached to it, and there's a ring light, there's a laptop. It's right. So there's it doesn't have to look pretty, for the tape itself to look good, right? So a bunch of stuff balanced on his bed. You have and so Alex, thank you for including that. I think that it's super, super useful for everybody to be like, oh, the tape looks really pretty. The setup does not have to look pretty. Alex, you asked about the ring light. I hope you saw in that last tape that although I have my ring light inverted, pointed away from me, I have a piece of paper here to make sure that light is reflected back into my eyeballs. And it looks like you don't currently have that piece of paper. And I think that if you do that, you'll get even better eye light. So that's my advice, is just like, grab a big sheet of craft paper and a chopstick, and roll the tape, right? Like it'll take you all of 2 minutes and will look pretty, but then you'll get even more eye light if you're inverting your ring light and pointing it away from you. And so here, like Alex, his first self tapes, and he shared that like he loves these characters, like the sort of the thief, the rebel, the criminal mastermind, the the wife beater in particular, for something like this. And and I think that actors who are very muscular, like, or showing off their bodies, will often, take a headshot, where they're like showing off their body in some way. That's where I will usually see the wife beater. The wife beater's, sort of going to be in like an indicator, typically of like, oh, this character's like, rougher, poorer, lower class, working class, like the fact that it's like a perfectly clean wife beater, maybe you mess with that a little bit, but it is the world of film and TV, and so everybody does look a little bit prettier. One of the things that I like about the start of this tape, Alex, is that like the focus is on your face and not on your wardrobe. Now I've said this to you before, but I don't think you look very criminal, and so in my opinion, a tape like this, really fun, creative, artistic. To me, it looks like you're pushing just a little bit around the eyeballs, and the wardrobe plus your face doesn't make a like perfectly coherent picture for me just looking at this. Now I don't think that would, because the setup is professional, I still think they're going to watch the first few seconds of this. So let's watch the first few seconds.
My name is Dalton Russell. Pay strict attention to what I say because I choose my words carefully.
Right. And so I'm going to watch the first 6 seconds and say, okay, not only is he like giving me the extra big eyeballs, but he's also talking in an extra slow, measured kind of character way. Doesn't feel real. Probably not going to watch the rest of it. Alex is nodding. I'm just going to show you that he's not offended. There you go. See, there's Alex's face. He knows I'm not being mean. Right. Presumably, y'all are. Oh, what's going on here? Presumably everybody is here to just like try and tweak this process, and I hope that I've been very clear with you all that I am not doing this perfectly either, and so if you ever start to feel shy about that, Alex, you tell me, and I'll show you some of my self tapes, and I'll take them apart ruthlessly for you. Right. Again, love the hair, right? Like if you're going out if you've been asked to go out for a character, that's got the crazy, then I think that this is great. Right. Like, yes, like, okay, technically it hides his eyeballs a little bit. I know I've said, don't do that. If he's been asked to go out for a character that is mentally unstable, like we get it in one. Now the pretend straitjacket, says like theatrical, and like an actor who's really excited about trying this thing. Again, is that going to stop me from watching the first 5 seconds of it? No, because the setup is really professional. So I'm like, okay, great. Okay, like, yeah, this is a little theatrical, but lots of great actors come from theater, and maybe he needs it to like really get there emotionally. Let's watch the first little bit of it.
My name is Dalton Russell. Pay strict attention to what I say because I choose my words carefully.
Okay, so it's like, it's fun, it's playful. Does it come across theatrical? Yes, absolutely it does. Doesn't come across like this is just Alex talking, and this is exactly what he wanted to say right now. And so again, it's possible that I won't watch more than 5 or 6 seconds of it. Now, I'm being slightly unfair to Alex because Alex did this as a stretch for practice, and I'm gonna come back and review the whole tape next time and be like, yeah, go Alex, like you are stretching growing as a person, right? So like Alex did these tapes specifically so that he could like grow that circle of what feels easy, and that means that these tapes were not about like, I'm going to try and make it perfect, because these weren't for submission to a casting director. These were for Alex to grow as an artist. So just want to qualify, that as, we watch these. And then third tape. Right. So this one, honestly, Alex, and I think I've said this to you before, this one's like, good. That guy I can see on TV, right? Like this, this is the like, the like the young lawyer, the assistant somewhere, like the like the collared shirt and the blazer, I think visually supports the sort of clean cut, white guy look that you've got going on, which I think that like the something, and this is just me, right? But for me personally, something about the like, slender, like the friendliness, the hair, like the like this works for me. I'm like, okay, right, yeah, junior lawyer, like new guy at the firm, right? I wouldn't, like, based on what I've seen, like while you might want to think about practicing characters, that are like really polished, or super confident or high class, I would say that currently, you could go in as yourself, with a character like this, without pushing, probably. So does the setup look professional? Absolutely. You can see he's a little further back in this one. Maybe he walks up into it. I don't know. Let's watch the first 5 seconds.
My name is Dalton Ross. Pay strict attention to what I say.
Perfect, right? So we get one where it's just Alex talking, and the only thing I would cut from that, Alex, is cut the glass, right? Because the focus was on your like cut crystal glass, at the beginning, and not on your face. It was like you didn't trust your acting, and instead you really wanted a prop. That's the way that comes across to me, and that's the only thing that's like, meh, like totally unnecessary there. Right now, if holding it in your hand helped you feel like the character, great. But like, don't showcase it to us beforehand, and definitely don't cover your face with it in the first 5 seconds. That's my advice for that. But does that one sound like you talking? Yes, like the look fits you, and then you're not pushing. Now, were you having as much fun in that one as the other ones? Probably not. You probably had more fun. Okay. So again, Alex is like, yeah, you're right. Right. So did you have more fun with the other two? Yes. Right. Because you're an artist and you're like, oh, I want to stretch. I want to do fun stuff. Very, very, very normal. Should you do the things that help you grow as an artist and feel fun? Yes. Should you also do, know that you're going to be paid for the thing that where you look in a way that like fits people's ideas or stereotypes of you initially, where you sound like you're just a guy talking and you're not an actor forcing anything, of course. Right. So like you can hold the dynamic tension of that, right? Like, don't stop being an artist just because you can get paid to do this one specific thing, right? Like if you can get cast in a bunch of commercials eating burgers, as and you're a vegetarian, fine. You like grin, take their money, and like spit out the meat in between takes, right? Like, blah! Like nobody has to know anything like that, right? Like take the money from the nice people and then use it to make the art that you want to make. That's my advice. Alex had a specific and concrete question, which I will share with you here. Look at me being all prepared with things. He said, I got my first ever professional audition here in London. Yoo-hoo! Thing is, my character is eating throughout the whole scene. At some point in the script says, Christian's mouth is full. Very good, thank you. So basically I have to say very good, thank you with my mouth full. Should I actually eat in the scene, or should I just do the taste the sauce method, or should I just forget about eating? Okay, so it really depends. Like for commercial, you could go all the way with it, and like especially if the character is supposed to be gross, right? If the character is supposed to be experienced as like gross, crass, disgusting, then like the eating, but just don't make it about the eating. If you're going to eat, pick something that you can eat, and then don't think about the eating at all, right? Like don't try and show off the food or anything like that. Just give yourself, okay, I'm going to say these lines, but I'm also going to eat this, these 9 celery sticks as fast as I possibly can. Okay, but like you can give yourself, something like that to play with. So my advice on taping this is that you try it both ways. That you try the taste the sauce method so that you can have something honest to respond to. Oh yeah, wow, that's good. You try the like give yourself something to eat, that like is, I don't know, where you're like, okay, I can eat 6 of these, right? So like, don't give yourself a muffin, or you're gonna have to eat 6 muffins. It'd be horrible, right? But like if you have some crackers there, and and it's a commercial. Oh no, you said it's a film. Oh, okay. If it was a commercial, then I would say, because commercials are the decision makers for commercials tend to be people at ad agencies. They tend to be from a very visual background. They don't tend to have a lot of imagination, right? And so there it can be highly, highly visual. For film, especially for a professional audition, you want them to be like, oh, wow, Alex is great. We see that he's a skilled actor. I see who he is as a person, and we're not going to cast him as the guy in the restaurant. We're going to cast him as the driver of the taxi. Whereas if you make your audition all about the prop, the likelihood that they will see you as anything other than the guy who had crackers spilling out of his mouth is much lower. right? So so if it's a film that you're auditioning for, taste the sauce. That's my advice. Then you're not because if you cut it entirely, then you've got to say a line like "very good, thank you" about nothing, and that's just harder to sell. It's hard to believe that that's something that you would say, which was our top level. We want it to seem like you're not acting. All right. Oh, look at that. We are at 6:04, my time, not where y'all are. Do either of you have more concrete questions about look, about type, about anything that I have covered before we wrap today? Okay, great. Well, thank you for your excellent questions. Alex, thank you for submitting your tapes. And like I said, we'll review those in next week's lesson in detail, so I can kind of give you more concrete pointers on like those ones that are more of a stretch. Here's what you might do to sell them, right? Like if you wanted to do the same thing but redo it and you wanted to come across that way, here's how we might do it. So if you really wanted to, and I know it's like 1 a.m. because you're in Europe, but if you really wanted to next week, so set up so that we could workshop it and like pick one of those characters and sort of like be in wardrobe, yes, and then so that I can workshop it with you, and like here's the tape, here's Alex wearing the same thing with the same setup. I'd be happy to do that with you. I think it'd be a benefit for everybody. Right. See you next week. I'm Michael Bean. This is from myfreeactingclass.com. If you're like, hey, this is amazing, then you can go to myfreeactingclass.com and you can sign up for the mailing list. It should pop up when you first get here. And if you're like, this Michael Bean guy, I'm interested in coaching in classes and finding out more about him, all you would have to do is scroll down here, click right there. It'll take you to michaelbean.ca. You can find out all about that. I keep doing these lessons. I keep forgetting to plug myself. It's just been the last 5 or 6 weeks. I'm like, right, I'm allowed to do that because, I'm a teacher. People might want more of that. Okay. Bye, everybody.